Okay, we are going to get started. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Lori Field, and I am the Associate Executive Director of Family Programming at the JCC in Rochester, New York, and currently serving as the Interim Director for Camp Seneca Lake. I grew up at Seneca Lake. I spent 13 summers there as a camper and a counselor, and it is a place that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and I'm really honored that in this moment in time that I am able to work with our community to hopefully find a way for us to all be at a place that we love in a safe environment. So the goal for tonight is to walk you through a presentation to tell you a little bit more about CSL Getaway and to then be able to open it up for questions and answers. So every couple of slides, I'm going to pause and open it up for questions. Feel free to send questions through the chat, or you can also just unmute yourself at any time and ask a question. So this is a beautiful picture of Camp Seneca Lake, and it's really such an important piece of the JCC in Rochester. And before March 14th, the JCC in Rochester was really focused on building community. We were working on building our programs, building our team, and building our culture. And specifically around Camp Seneca Lake, we were in the beginning phases of thinking about a 10-year capital campaign and a strategic plan for continuing to be able to sustain and build our beloved camp. And then on March 14th, as we all know, everything changed. And we went from building community to this important need to protect our community. So we began to protect our programs, our team, and our culture. And so this unfortunately led us to the very painful and difficult decision to cancel camp for this summer, but had in the back of our minds a hope and a deep desire to be able to figure out a way that we could take advantage of the beautiful 200 plus acres of land that we have at Seneca Lake, and know that for some people, having a weekend to be able to get away is really important and impactful. So what has that meant for the JCC and for being able to open camp? Well, there are significant costs associated with opening camp. So in the traditional family camp model, family camp runs at the end of 8+ weeks of running camp and having some rentals. And it's kind of this like wonderful bonus that we have at the end of the summer. The model this summer is very different, that we don't have the registration of hundreds of campers. And so the cost to open and maintain camp is instead spread amongst fewer weeks and fewer campers and or families, if you will. And we based our model off of about 50 to 75 participants per week in hopes that we would be able to have enough participants to break even in this model. So this model is not set up to be a revenue driver. It is really there in the hopes that, you know, making money, of course, is always a plus. But at this moment in time, what was really in our mind was building a model that was break even so that we could get people out to camp. So our initial concept is to try to deliver the Camp Seneca Lake experience. And so our pricing, again, is at break even, and it's really less than what a camper week is. We understand it's a very different experience, but again, those costs of being able to run camp remain the same. So what are we doing right now? We're gauging our community interest. We've opened registration. I'm speaking one-on-one with people who are interested and are asking questions. And we're doing this Zoom session, and I'm recording this so that other people can listen in and hopefully get enough information to be able to make an informed decision. So we need 2/3 capacity each week in order to be able to run this program. So it doesn't mean that every week all 4 weeks need to have 2/3 capacity, but our hope is that majority of the weeks would have 2/3 capacity so that we can cover these expenses that are fixed. They don't ebb and flow based on the amount of people that are at camp. And, you know, there's no guarantees. If we can't get that 2/3 capacity, we will go back to the drawing board and think about other options. This is our second model that we are presenting. And, you know, we valued the feedback that we heard from the community, both in the price and the length of the program. And so there's no guarantees that we'll be able to figure out another model. We're really hopeful that this is a model that will speak to people. And if it's not, if this isn't the right moment in time, understanding where we're at with the uncertainty of COVID in the world, then that's okay as well. So before I jump into the programming, does anyone have any questions about how we got here, about this moment in time? Okay, let's jump into the program, the exciting stuff to talk about. So as a session overview, so Yates County approved us to run a family retreat model based on, of course, the guidelines and the requirements of the CDC and the Department of Health. So we're actually running this under a different permit than we run our camp under, which means that some of the rules and regulations that we follow are different. But this is almost like this is a temporary residence permit, or a permit that campgrounds might have. So we're gonna provide a camp-like experience. There's gonna be a schedule, daily schedule from Thursday through Sunday. Thursday morning, the gates will open at 9 a.m. and we will have our activities close Sunday at 4, and the gates will close at 5. So that'll give you an hour to pack up your belongings and take that last walk around camp. Thursday will run like a regular day with periods. I'll show you a schedule in a few minutes of what it'll look like. And we're going to talk a little bit about ways we can have socially distant all camp programs. So we'll have something for the entire camp on Thursday. Friday, activities will be open for the day, and then Friday evening we will have Shabbat dinner. And for those who would like to join, have Shabbat services, hopefully down at the fire circle. On Saturday morning, we will offer a Shabbat morning experience, again, for anyone who wants to join. Activities will be open throughout the day. Saturday evening, we'll have Havdalah and a camp-style barbecue following COVID food regulations, and some sort of opportunity for people to participate in an all-camp program, again, following socially distant rules. And then on Sunday, we will spend our last day right up until that very last moment with all of the program areas open. So we've opened 4 sessions at this time. They're $1,000 for a 10-person cabin and $500 for a 4-person mini cabin. So in that 10-person cabin, you can, if you are comfortable, share that with extended family or with perhaps another family that maybe you have been quarantining with, or that you have seen and feel comfortable that, you know, in most cabins, there's kind of 2 separate sides that you wouldn't have to be sleeping on top of each other, and could designate certain toilets and showers to family members. We do have an $1,800 voluntary rate, and this is something that for people who may feel that at this moment in time, they might be able to pay a little bit extra to help us with fees. We wanted to put that out there, but that is of course not a requirement. It is the $1,000 for the 10-person and the $500 for the 4-person mini cabin. So that's for your housing. And then what we did was we have a additional, and this is not per day, this is per session. And there were some questions about that, so I wanted to make sure it was clear. This is per session, $54 for an adult and $36 for a child. And that covers your Friday night and Saturday night dinner and program fees. And so the program fees help us to be able to run and have supplies for arts and crafts, have our supplies that we need for archery, be able to run effectively our waterfront, make sure that our athletics equipment is set for you, as well as some nature and the activities around making this a wonderful Jewish experience for those who want to participate. So all of our activities and kind of the way we run our daily schedule will be modified to ensure safety and wellness. I have been really blessed to be working with about 20 other camp directors across the country who have canceled their traditional camp for the summer and have transitioned into this model. Some of you may remember Aaron Cantor, who was previously our camp director at Seneca Lake. Aaron is also running this model. And so we are on the phone, sometimes on the hourly, but usually on the daily, exchanging ideas, and have really been able to work together in thinking about how we can do this in a safe way. we're going to schedule times for people to visit around camp. So when you sign up for camp, once we know how many people are coming for each session, your family will receive a questionnaire to help us understand what activities, where do you want to go, how often do you want to visit things, so that I can help to ensure, our staff can help to ensure that not one area at camp is overcrowded at once. So in arts and crafts, maybe we have 2 tables outside and they're separated 10 feet apart. And so 2 families can be there separated. At archery, we might keep just 1 family at a time. At athletics, we're so blessed with tons of space that you would be able to come and either we would give you equipment to hold on to for the weekend, or you would be able to sign equipment out to be able to use it and then return it. And we would do the sign in, sign out, just so that we could ensure that equipment is properly sanitized in between use. And then we would also make sure that there was assigned time so that we could manage the cleaning in between the canoes and the rowboats and sailing. I don't want this to sound as though it won't be fun. We'll make it in a way that feels organic, that people can still go and do the things that they want, but that there'll be certain activities that we schedule into the day to help make sure that when you get to that activity, you feel safe and comfortable. At this time, we are not able to open our pool as per New York State regulations, but those regulations are changing on the daily. And at this time, we decided that we are not going to be offering water skiing and motorboat rides. And again, as we continue to learn more about COVID, and we may be able to make changes, but it was really important to me to have us set more on making sure that the expectations are there, and then if things change, that could be a pleasant surprise, rather than at the last minute taking things away that we're not sure about. In terms of evening and or all camp activities, we definitely feel that there's a way that we can, in a socially distant way, have Shabbat down at our fire circle. I've spent a lot of time just staring at the fire circle and thinking about how we can block families off. So we can assign a family an area and then make sure that there's a space in between, and then there's tape for another family there. And so that would allow us to still be able to be together with a smaller group, be together, but still maintain that distance. There's opportunities where we can do on our O field, which there is plenty of room, and some of our other fields, where families participate just with themselves, but competing against other families in relay races and scavenger hunts. We can do movie nights and talent shows where people are taking their blankets and distanced, and maybe you stand up and your family does your talent and puts on a performance, and then you sit right back down in your blanket, and that way we can all still be together. So while it isn't the magic of camp, I think there's a magic in a COVID moment that we can make this feel as much like camp as possible. Any questions about activities, or let me actually do the sample schedule and then I'll pause. That's the perfect spot for people to ask questions. So this is a sample schedule of what a day would look like. And I've highlighted the areas around camp cleanup because I really want to express to everyone and share how much thought we've put into the way that periods would run. So let's say that your family is at arts and crafts for first period. We would then leave 30 minutes and there would be sanitation and cleaning supplies where we would ask you to just clean up after yourself. And there would be time then 15 to 20 minutes after you've cleaned where everything is just sitting untouched and you have the opportunity to go back to your cabin, go to the bathroom, change for your next activity, and move on. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the presentation, but we will have 2 full-time housekeeping staff in addition to our property manager and the additional staff that will be helping with the camp cleanup. But we need everybody's help. This is something where in order for us we'll keep camp as clean as we can based on the participation and the support of everyone helping to clean up after themselves. So otherwise, we hope that it looks very much like a camp day with just some extra cleanup time. So now I'm gonna pause to take any questions about camp activities.
Lori, regarding the cleanup
yes.
that you were just talking about, what kind of clean, how extensive, or what do you have in mind? Is it just, spraying and disinfectant? Is it wiping down surfaces? What is it that you would be asking the families to do?
Great question. So first and foremost, we would work with families so that if there were families who had any sort of allergies or were uncomfortable with using any of the supplies that we would be using, that we would make sure that we would clean on your behalf. I want to make sure that that's clear, that, this is a hope that people can help us, but certainly not a requirement. We understand that for some people, some of the more intense cleaning supplies can be challenging for people's breathing. So we would be using our commercial grade. I don't have in front of me the commercial grade cleaning supplies that our JCC uses. We have a really extensive housekeeping plan put together for our JCC in Rochester. We would literally take that plan and put it over. We're also buying, it's called an electrostatic sprayer, and the sprayer would help us to be able to, in between certain periods and at night and in between sessions, you just go and it's the sprayer that's a backpack and you spray things down, and it is an amazing way to disinfect pretty much anything. So that's a great way to disinfect, for example, mattresses in between use, or be able to go in and disinfect the entire arts and crafts at the end of the night for the next period. The goal is that everything is really outside based. For arts and crafts, the supplies may be out set on a table and you'd go grab your supplies and then go be outside on the tables right outside of arts and crafts. So we're gonna pray for perfect weather, but I promise we also have some great rainy day plans so that we can really keep as much activities as possible outside, because we know that there's less risk when we're outside than inside.
Lori, I had a question. What's the staffing situation going to be like, particularly down at Waterfront? I know we would love to get out on a sailboat, but frankly don't have the skill or ability to do it.
Great question. And we will help you get out on a sailboat. So we're going to have a waterfront director and then several waterfront staff who are all CPR, first aid, and lifeguard trained. And they would rotate between land, sea, and helping people with boats. So there's plenty of staff that will be down there to be able to help people experience the beauty of being out on the lake. And perhaps it's actually a great suggestion, Matt, that one of the things we can think about is if you want to sign up for a family sailing ride, we can do that in advance so we know that we have the staff to be able to take you out for a meaningful experience, rather than getting down there and it feeling maybe chaotic that there isn't someone at that exact moment. So we can work that perfectly into the schedule. It's a great suggestion. Thank you for bringing it up. But we will have staff at the waterfront. We will have several housekeeping staff. We will have someone up at arts and crafts. We will have someone who is helping us with all of our athletic equipment, keeping it sanitized, helping to keep the equipment clean and to come up with ways to engage your family in fun athletic activities, as well as someone to help us with leading some family hikes or walks around camp to indulge in nature in a way that might be different than if your family was just going on your own. In addition to me, so I would be there as well. And I come with two really cute kids, Avery and Jonah, who are 4 and 5, and my husband, Seth, who will be there on the weekends, who likes to chip in and help as well.
I know the pool's not open. Swimming in the lake an option?
Yeah, swimming in the lake is an option. And so, you can jump off. We'll have the lifeguards there. We'll have it all set so that you can go swimming. And you could be risky and you could capsize your canoe if you want. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah. As far as the other athletic activities that would be available, the facilities, I mean, obviously Gaga, you probably can't exactly do socially distant with other people.
Right.
But I imagine the same is true for some of the other things. I mean, without having, like if we came with just the 4 of us.
Yep. So
I'm not sure how much we could do athletic wise on the fields with.
Sure. So it's a great point. And the truth is that every day we learn new information that changes what we think we can do. And of course, I think we're definitely going on the side of being super precautious. That's not going to stop me that if there's families who decide to come together that they can play, but that's also up to us, the staff, to think about ways that you and your family of 4 can find ways to be athletic and to have fun together. So 2-on-2 floor hockey, and we'll get you those floor hockey sticks, and 2-on-2 basketball. And actually, I've played Gaga with my family of 4 and we've had fun. And then we can use our electrostatic sprayer and spray it down after you're done, because maybe you fall up against the wall a few times because you're having a lot of fun. And then we can spray it down and the next family can come in. So, you know, and again, I know it sounds like a lot, but I think there's this opportunity that we can come together as a community and be kind to each other and to be patient. And there's so much space for athletics that, you know, we could take equipment and have people all over camp feeling like they're getting their sillies out and doing some good athletic work together. You're also welcome to bring your bikes and to be able to bike around camp and to bike up Camp Road if you feel so inclined. It's a beautiful place to be able to bike around camp as well.
Are we wearing masks the whole time other than when we're eating, or what's the plan?
So I'm going to answer that now since you asked. It's going to come up later. So our request right now is that if you are inside and in a group activity inside, not in your cabin, that you would be wearing masks. Outside, as long as you are not within 6 feet of another group, you do not need to wear a mask. So if you decide to go talk with another family, because that's what we do, we would ask and hope that you would put a mask on and maintain the rules that we're following kind of socially right now. I've been at camp the past couple of weekends starting to get camp cleaned up. I have put on a mask to see what it feels like, and I know it's hard when it's hot out. So I think that this is on all of us. Of course, if I see something, I will say something to someone, but this is on us to follow the rules and guidelines that we continue to receive from the county on best practices. All right, let's keep going. So on to housing. So at this time, the plan is to open several areas around camp. And I really focused on thinking creatively about what areas in camp would allow for private bathrooms. The plan right now, as it's stated, is to not open public bathrooms around camp. As we know, bathrooms are a place where COVID can easily live. And while I know that, you know, campgrounds are starting to open their bathrooms, I think that we have a one up on the fact that we've got plenty of places for people to stay with their own bathrooms. So Seneca, Onondaga, and Cayuga all have bathrooms that are attached and a part of each cabin. In Mohawk, for those of you who have not been there, Mohawk has its own kind of separate bathroom and then cabins. So for Mohawk, there is a left side to the bathroom and a right side to the bathroom. And we're gonna rent just 2 cabins out. So one cabin would get the left side of the bathroom and one cabin would get the right. They don't intersect. You walk up your own side. There's a brick wall in between the bathrooms. So it's completely private, and you're really keeping your distancing by walking into your own separate bathrooms. Those are the larger cabins, the ones that go for $1,000. The gallery, the disco, and the arena are the smaller cabins that are going for $500. Those all have a bathroom and a shower in them. And those are typically staff housing units that we wanted to make available to have some flexibility in our price points. We certainly understand that for so many of us right now that finances are tight, and we were hopeful that this would allow some additional opportunities at additional price points for people to try to make coming to camp work. And there's explanations in what I sent out, and if you didn't get it at the end of this or send me a chat, I can send you an explanation of what each village is, what the cabins are like, specifically the gallery, the disco, and arena, and what the cabin setup is. As I mentioned earlier, groups can share a cabin. That is up to you. We would ask, of course, that you're making good judgment choices in deciding to share a cabin together. But for example, my parents who some of you heard me talking about at the beginning of the session. They live down the street from us. We have seen them every day since quarantine. I would feel perfectly comfortable sharing a cabin with them, as well as my sister, who I've seen. So that is an option for people, and a way to then make it so that each family is only paying $500. And again, let me know. I can send you out pictures. The cabins really allow you so that you can really have kind of separate sides of the cabin. And this is something that a lot of families do during our traditional family camp model. We're asking that anyone who's under the age of 18 come with their family, and that our young adults who are in between the ages of 18 to 20 require a guardian present and accountable. And we know that 18 to 20-year-olds are college students. We know that they are camp counselors, but with family camp traditionally allowing people to bring alcohol into their villages, and in a world where, God forbid, we were to have COVID and we would need to evacuate camp, we really felt strongly that we wanted to have a guardian there who could help support and keep our young adults accountable and present. As you know, these dates, the first 4 weekends, bring us into the beginning of July. We have not decided what to do with August and at this moment in time. And there could be an opportunity where there's different models in August that allow different groups of people to be able to come to camp. Is there any questions about housing? Okay.
One question, sorry.
Yes.
What kind of security do you have?
What?
Like, is there an on-site police officer? It's not that I feel like we're going to be in danger, but most Jewish organizations have on-site police, like one person who is a security off-duty police officer. I was just wondering if that is part of your staff who's going to be there.
It's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So we have a security gate when you enter camp that is an electric gate that you can't get into without a code, that has a camera on it. And we are actually installing Wi-Fi at camp within the next couple of days. And so there's two wonderful things about Wi-Fi. Number one, it allows those of us to stay connected, that want to stay connected, and to be able to work virtually from camp. And I don't know about you, but being able to sit at the waterfront and be on a Zoom meeting is better than being at home on a Zoom meeting. But it also allows that we'll have security cameras all throughout camp at our entrances at the waterfront and at the gate. And that will be connected to a few of us that would be able to respond to emergencies, both here at camp, but also in the Rochester community. So we have, as a part of the Jewish Federation, Mark, who used to be Mark Henderson, now works for the Federation, and he used to work for the Brighton Police Department. And so he is our strategic partner in working on our safety. And so if anything were to happen, he is a part of our safety protocol of who we reach out to. We also have an incredible relationship with the Yates County Police. They drive through camp on the regular, and they have always been very attentive if we have ever needed anything to respond immediately. So there is no plan to have a security guard on camp, but we do have security cameras, and we do have a gate that does not allow you in without the code.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for asking.
Lori, those 3 cabins, the 4-person cabins, the ones
Yep.
that are staff, can you tell us where they are?
Yes.
Which one's which?
Yeah, so I can send you pictures so that you know which one's which, but they're all right by the dining hall. So they're not in a village, they're right by the dining hall, which means that it's a little bit of a different experience, but I still think that we can make it great for people. Again, the goal was to be able to offer something that was a little bit smaller at a lower price point to make it affordable. And again, shoot me, because I can't see everyone who's talking, I'm so sorry that I'm not responding to you by name. Just shoot me an email in the chat, and I can send you pictures of the cabins when we're done. So for our meal, for our dining experiences, for those of you who were familiar with our first model, the initial model that we put out, which was the the 5-night, 6-day experience, one of the big changes that we made in order to make this a more affordable experience was that we changed our food model. So on Friday night for dinner, we're going to have a Shabbat dinner, and that's going to be most likely catered by Eli Barashi here at the JCC in Rochester, who is now our new caterer, and he has been doing Shabbat in a box, and so he will be able to get us at camp very warm, perfect, hot Shabbat in a box meals that will cater to vegetarian and to people who have dietary restrictions. One of the questions in your registration is to share any of those dietary restrictions, and Ellie will work with anyone in advance to make sure that your Shabbat experience and your meal meets your needs. And then Saturday night, we're going to do a camp style barbecue. And so it's important to know that for both of those things that we are following all of the restaurant guidelines and standards in terms of food preparation for COVID. So there is really strict guidelines about, you know, what the servers wear, that you don't take food, but that one person who's wearing gloves hands you the food so that there isn't multiple hands. We're going to be following the strictest of protocols to make sure that both of these meals are enjoyable. If the weather's nice, we'll have all of the tables out right in front of the dining hall so that we can eat outside. As we all know that in those of you who are in Rochester in phase 2, that restaurants have opened to be able, some restaurants have opened to be able to sit outside, and we would follow those same recommendations and protocols. And if we have to eat inside, depending on the amount of numbers, 2 things can happen. We can move all the tables around. Of course, not you guys. We'll do that in advance to make sure that they're socially distant and that families get assigned tables. Or we can do 2 seatings, depending on, you know, what the weather is and how many people we have signed up, where families who with younger kids maybe come to the earlier seating, and people with older kids or who are coming maybe without young children come to the older seating. So we've got a couple of different plans in place in terms of where people will eat on Friday and on Saturday night. You are responsible for your dinner on Thursday and for breakfast and lunch each day. Each cabin is going to have a mini fridge that's in it that will be for your own use. We ask that grills do not come on camp. But we are going to transform Canteen into what I would think of a camping general store, so that there is snacks, cold drinks, tasty treats, things that you might need that you may have forgotten, or your kids may have eaten way too quickly, or it's just really hot and you want to get everybody a popsicle. And we should be able to set that up through CampMinder so that we just write down that you've purchased something. We don't have to exchange any cash, and we can just charge your credit card at the end for the things that you've purchased. Again, this meal plan, this dining experience really helps us to be able to make this an affordable weekend. As you can imagine, providing full food service and the cost for opening and maintaining our kitchen in the way that we typically do during the summer and for family camp is a large expense. We are allowing people, we're going to go into this in a second, to go in and out of camp. I'll explain in a minute what that looks like, but that does afford people the availability to be able to go out of camp to pick up that cup of coffee or that donut from Dunkin' Donuts in the morning to start your day off well. Does anyone have any questions about meals, about food?
So for the rest of the food, we either bring our own food that can be refrigerated and doesn't need to be cooked, or we'd essentially be going out of camp for a restaurant or something. Is there
Yeah, I think our hope for breakfast and lunches was, you know, that people could bring things that were cold that could just be refrigerated, that you would eat cold sandwiches or, you know, salads, things that you could pre-bring, and or that you could go pick up food. There's a lot of good, easy, quick places. There's also pizza that traditionally delivers to camp. But yes, you can certainly do that. And we know that that's not, you know, that puts a little bit of extra work on families. But again, that allowed us to reduce the cost. One of the prohibiting costs from the initial model was the expenses around the food. And so this allowed us to make it a little bit easier in terms of food preparation.
where would we be eating the breakfasts and lunches? In the cabin, picnic style, dining hall?
We can do all of the above. We're going to have the tables outside the dining hall, and again, families would be assigned tables. So I would have a little stand with your family's name so that you could go and still be able to be with other families while socially distant at your own table. And we also have tables that are out in the villages. So you would have either preference for breakfast or lunch. I imagine there are people who might decide that they want to picnic out whatever activity they're at and eat at the waterfront. And for some people, like myself, if your kids aren't sitting at a table, they don't eat. So we'll have several places around camp, but the dining hall outside of it and being able to sit inside will be there with labeled tables for you to sit at, and our cleaning staff will be cleaning those in between each and every use.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know in the original plan it said that the food served would be kosher. What about food that we bring in and put into those mini fridges? Obviously, you get pizza brought in, which is not going to be kosher in
Right.
that part of New York. But if we bring our own food, what's the requirement if there is any?
Great question. So I would ask that, people be respectful and follow kosher style rules, which is what we do at camp. I certainly also recognize that there are challenges with kids in terms of what they eat. And we will make sure that if there are families who are strictly kosher, that we make sure that they aren't put in a situation that makes them uncomfortable in both the refrigeration use and being around other people who might not be eating food that is kosher. So we ask people to use their best judgment and to be respectful of those around you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I saw that someone raised their hand, and I'm so sorry because my screen is so small that it closed down, but someone raised their hand, so please feel free to take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I had a question. The refrigerators that you're talking about, they're like the dormitory style
Yes.
fridge?
Yes.
I'm just thinking for a family, for a group of 10 in a cabin,
We'll
have
have
to bring it. Go ahead.
We can have 2 for a family of 10.
Okay. And the other follow-up question, is there any chance of acquiring like a vendor to be at camp that weekend that people could buy stuff that way it wouldn't be a cost for the camp?
It's a great question. So once I have a better sense of numbers, I'm definitely going to look into some food truck options to see if there's people who might be willing to come. It's really hard to get a gauge on the what ifs, but once I know the numbers, so my husband is a foodie and used to work in the restaurant industry in New York City, and he is desperately excited to be able to reach out to food trucks to see if we can get some people to come by. So, I think that is an amazing option for us. And I would imagine that they would want a guarantee of some range of sense of business. And so that's something, again, I really want this to be a personalized experience. And so I'll work with families and say, hey, is this something you think you'd be interested in? And then we could let the food truck provider know and have them come. But I'm totally open to those things.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. All right, let's move on to health and safety. So since I started working with camp and we were evaluating whether or not our traditional camp plan would run for the summer, I was really blessed to be able to work with several of the nurses and physicians who traditionally come to Seneca Lake during the summer. And I have a medical task force that has been helping since day one put together a COVID-19 action plan. And this is both specific to Seneca Lake, but also practices that the Rochester JCC are implementing. Some of the things that will be required at camp is upon arrival, before you even get out of your car, everyone will need to complete a health assessment and have their temperature checked. This is a really quick, easy process. We're doing this at our children's center. It is just a couple of questions to check your symptoms and to check your temperature. Anyone who has a fever of 100.4 degrees or higher or any visible symptoms will not be allowed into camp. And this is the guidelines of the CDC, not on ours. Everyone beforehand will be asked to sign a COVID-19 agreement. And these are the things that we were talking about earlier, about the masks, about, making sure that you, at least if you're not cleaning something, you let someone know if an area needs to be cleaned, maintaining that social distancing, making sure that you tell people if you're experiencing any new symptoms. We're going to have, as I mentioned earlier, 2 full-time cleaning staff at camp, plus our property manager and the rest of our staff, who will all go through training on there's COVID-19 specific training around operations and cleaning and best practices in terms of taking care of facilities. We'll be using a daily sanitation checklist that has been built by our housekeeping staff at the JCC. So it's really the best practices that we will implement for our camp to help keep it clean. All of our program areas and all of the bunks will have cleaning supplies and sanitation supplies. So you yourself in your cabins will have supplies to be able to keep your area clean during your stay. And then we will work as a staff to make sure that our housekeeping staff cleans each and every cabin and area in between our sessions. We talked about this, but I'll mention it again, that we're asking everyone when they're inside to wear face coverings when they're with other people. And if you're outside and closer than 6 feet to others, that you have a mask on. We will make sure that we have extra masks so that if we see someone that should have a mask on and they don't have one, that we are able to provide it to them. Any questions about health and safety? I know that this is a big topic, and so it was easier for me to just put some bullets and then to be able to answer people's customized questions. And I just want to say, Natalie, thank you so much for your idea about everybody doing a mass order for pizza. I think it's a great idea. And again, these are ideas that when we have our list of who we know is coming, we can start working on customizing that weekend to make it work for the group of people. So thanks for sharing. Sorry, I just saw that. Go ahead, Matt.
Leaving aside COVID issues, will the nurse be there for the scrapes, the bumps, the falls, the poison ivy?
So
is the CEPA call going to be available?
Yes, CEPA call will be available. We will not be having a nurse on site. All of our staff will have CPR first aid training, and most of our staff will be lifeguard certified. So we will be following the same procedures that we follow at the JCC if there's an emergency. Again, we've got a really solid emergency action plan, and we will make sure that all of our cabins and our program areas have first aid kits so that families can treat their children for the bumps and the bruises, and anything bigger that we would partner with you to figure out what the next best steps are. But CEPA call is always available everywhere you go, Matt. Any other questions? Okay. So this brings us to next steps. So what does the next steps look like? So we opened registration yesterday. We are running our Zoom information session today, which I am recording to get out to the general public. So thank you so much for being a part of it so that I can send this out. We are asking that deposits are required by June 21st. So this date, while we're going to continue to accept applications after that, June 21st is the date that we really need to know if we have enough interest to be able to move forward. So June 22nd is our next JCC Board of Directors meeting, and that's where we would make a go, no-go decision based on our demand. My hope is that I know before that, but we really need people's commitment in order to be able to get a sense of how many people are coming and make sure that we have enough cabins filled each week to be able to run. And then we would open CSL retreat July 9th. So as you can imagine, deposits being required by June 21st for a July 9th opening means that there's crunch time, and we've got to work really quickly to get camp ready. I assure you we have a phenomenal plan to get it ready, but it is certainly helpful if you feel like this is something that you and your family would like to do for the summer, that you register sooner rather than later, so that A, you can get the cabin and the village that you want, but also that we can get a sense of interest so that we can plan accordingly. So at this point, I would love to just open it up for general questions and answers. I know some of you had already emailed me and asked some questions privately, but if you think there's questions that I already answered for you that would be helpful for the public, feel free to ask them.
Lori, what's the deposit?
The deposit's $500 per family.
Oh, the full, so the full, because that's the full amount, right?
Well, that's the full amount for the smaller cabin.
Oh, okay, right.
And for the bigger cabin, that's half. So we really need to be able to have, transparently deposit down and some money in so that we can turn on the lights and do some things. So that we're asking across the board for families $500. Of course, if someone needs to make an arrangement to have that look differently, please feel free to reach out to me. We unfortunately can't offer financial aid at this time, but if someone needed to split up that deposit in order to, if that was the difference between coming and not, I would ask that you would reach out to me so we could talk privately.
And how are the, do we request particular dates and particular cabins?
Yep. So when you go onto the Camp Minder website, and I know some of you have struggled, and so if you have, just reach out to me. Melissa, I'm going to be in touch with you tomorrow. Sorry I missed you today, but don't worry, I've got you. I'm getting people onto Camp Minder, and in your application process, you choose the date you want. You put the village that you want to request or that you have no preference. And then I review your application, and then we will process it. And so we won't, while I'm reviewing it and making sure that the village that you want and the date you want works, I don't charge you until I communicate with you and let you know that it's gone through and you're all set.
And as far as the activities on that day where it's scheduled, that's just Thursday, right?
So activities will be scheduled throughout the entire time. There will be certain things that you can come and go to freely, but we also want to make sure that families have the opportunity to get to all of the areas around camp, and that places aren't flooded with people, and that we don't want to put your family in a situation where there's too many people at one activity. So athletics, let's say we've got tons of different areas, so we can rotate between basketball and floor hockey and Gaga and the softball field. And I'm forgetting things, but tetherball and lots of different options. So there'll be times that certain things are open, and you'll know that in advance, and then you'll be able to sign up for time slots that work for your family.
Okay, so you can select.
Absolutely. I am not choosing. Yes, I am not choosing for you. I'm going to work with you to make sure that we choose activities that work well for your family. And that might mean that you split up. Let's say you've got a really athletic daughter and a son who just likes the water. Your family can split up, and we can make sure that you get to all of your areas. Again, you could be down at the waterfront and go do things, but to have, take Matt's family out sailing, let's make sure that we've got a sailing instructor ready to go. And so we'll make a reservation for that. Does that answer your question? Okay. I'm going to actually stop sharing this just so I can see people. Other questions that people might have or comments?
Will this presentation be posted somewhere?
Yes.
To share with people?
Yes, that is the plan. So
Okay,
we're going to post this on social media, and then we're also sending out a mass mailing to our entire JCC membership on Monday, and this will be a part of it as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Any other questions that people have? Feel free to reach out to me via phone or email. I am available and want to be able to talk with any of you about questions or concerns that you may have. And I truly hope that I get to spend a long weekend with your family at camp this summer. All right, everyone.
Thanks, Lori.
Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.